And you get your choice of saying, I'm going to stay or I'm going to leave.
Yeah. So this is Mike Ungerman, and this is the Central Florida Computer Society Linux Special Interest Group. And we have people from all over the country joining us tonight, including at least one member of the Central Florida Computer Society besides myself, Paul Colton, who's really not a Linux guy, but said he wanted to listen in. So welcome, Paul.
Good. Maybe he'll become one.
Yeah, you never know. For the record, and for those that weren't here last time, we took a Lenovo laptop, had Windows 10 installed, and we went over the requirements for Linux to put Linux on it. We took a flash drive and we downloaded the Linux Mint Cinnamon distribution, put it on a flash drive that was made bootable. We installed it and we got to the main screen. And that's where we left it. So we're going to pick it up here tonight after. I'm just looking to see if we've got anybody else waiting. Looks like we only have 6 tonight, so I guess we can go ahead and talk about this. So I'm going to share the screen here.
Okay.
And the one thing I did do is put Zoom on this notebook so that I could go ahead and actually run from the conference from this notebook, and then we could actually work with it instead of trying to film the screen or video the screen as we did when we were doing the installation. And that's where we left it, with Welcome to Linux Mint. So the only other thing too that happened, and we didn't really go over what's down here in the panel and tray, but you can see that I've got Zoom running live. And oh, how nice. Okay, you
Can't see that.
up. Oh, you can't see it? All right, I'm
Nope,
glad you.
that's-
I guess it just popped up for me. Let me see if I can get rid of it.
Oh, we have a big,
black box rectangle.
Oh, okay, now why can't I close that? Oh, let's see if that says, does that say close? Dock to bottom. Okay. All right. And you probably don't see the Zoom tray. Well, but I'm still seeing the licensed account. Oh, there we go. Now, if I close that, is that gonna?
not, we'll
right.
all come back there.
Okay,
That's
there we
okay.
go. Okay, so anyway, Zoom has its little icon, and then the system updater put an icon on there in between the time that this unit was shut down the last time and when I turned it on this morning. And I had hoped to save some updates to show you. If you've never seen the system update, those of you that have used Linux before, you're very familiar with it. But there were about 25 or 30 updates to install, one of which was the main Linux code base. And I figured, well, I may as well go ahead and do that because it's a major system update. And if I was just going to do some minor updates, they wouldn't require me to reboot. But there's a possibility that the whole core being updated might require a reboot, which it did do. But I got a very interesting error. And the error popped up saying, because your system is set up for secure boot, we have to give you you have to assign yourself a unique passcode or password. And then when your system reboots, you're going to have to put that unique password in because you have secure boot enabled in the system BIOS. And I'd never seen that before in any of my other computers. So I said, all right, might as well get that over with and done. So I entered it, the system rebooted. It gave me a pop-up box, none of which of the options were to enter in that password. And one of the, I think of the 4 options was just go ahead and boot. So, okay, I booted. Well, it brought me back up to the main screen, but the Wi-Fi wasn't enabled. And that didn't make any sense to me. So this particular laptop, thankfully, has an Ethernet cable socket. So I put the Ethernet cable socket back in, rebooted, came back up to the main screen. I had internet, but I still couldn't get the Wi-Fi to work. Hang on, Stu has just come in, so I'm going to let him come in. And anyway, I had to do a whole bunch of troubleshooting. The bottom line was I wound up going into the BIOS of the Lenovo, finding where secure boot was one of the options left over from Windows, turning it off, rebooting, getting back into Linux, and my Wi-Fi was back. And it's just one of these weird things, I guess. I don't know if you've seen anything like that before, John.
It's the Windows thing with the secure boot. That's the first thing that's the best to do is when you're wanting to convert a Windows machine is to turn off that secure boot and having to go probably back to legacy. So
Yes,
that you can
was
boot
one
in.
of the one of the choices also, is to enable USB legacy.
So that's why we kind of, I as one and a few others just poo-poo any kind of dual booting with Windows, because when Windows updates, it'll give you headaches. And so just keep it a Linux computer and take off the Windows stuff.
Well, that's essentially what I was going to do, but when I didn't have to, because
Right.
I booted from it and said, hey, you want to install it? Yeah, sure. So it just went ahead and worked with it. So lesson learned, I guess, is if you're starting from scratch, and this is, I guess, for the Armitages, but if you're starting from scratch and you do want to do a full installation, go into the BIOS of your computer and turn off Windows Secure Boot. And if there's any settings for legacy USB devices, turn those legacy settings on and then proceed with the installation, just to minimize any problems you might run into. So here we are. Welcome to Linux Mint. And as I said in the email, I don't plan on this being sort of a presentation mode. I just want to go through, let's set this notebook up and let's find out what's here. And as we go, if you've got questions or tips that you'd like to make, just chime in. I did notice that we were working with Linux Mint 20.1, which is good. Some of you probably saw my question about upgrading my desktop from 18 to 20, and it's not going to be an easy process. Probably wind up just doing a fresh install. So if you're familiar with the window, yeah, go ahead. Oh, I thought okay. If you're familiar with the Windows welcome, it kind of gives you some tips and whatever, but it doesn't actually give you an interactive process of setting up in the Windows welcome. So I welcomed the Linux interactive menu that comes up when you come in, and you can see we have the default desktop, which is just sort of a gray logo, and you can choose your favorite colors. So if I move this over to the side a little bit and decide I want it to be I thought that was gonna, maybe I have to select it. Hang on. Okay, let's see.
Just turn that thing at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if anything's changing when I'm selecting it.
Okay, go back to the green.
Go back to the green.
Yeah, you've made a change there. Your home folder. on
Oh,
your
I see.
desktop.
Yeah, the folder screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see if I go to blue. Is that going to change the background? Yes. Okay. So that's what it's doing in the desktop, but it's not changing my background. Oh, I see. In the home folder's blue too. All right. So I can get gold then. All right.
Mike, can we
Yes.
interrupt you? My
Sure.
husband said he didn't check this box, show this
I-
dialogue.
Check to not show it.
He didn't check it to show it. He checked it to not show it. And he's tried repeatedly to get back to it and he can't.
Okay. I think, let me just see if it's here in all of the different things that are available to us. I think
Do it faster by just in the search box, type in start.
start. Well, that's showing startup applications.
Yeah, that's what we got.
Oh, no,
Okay.
welcome. Do the welcomes. Try welcome.
Yeah, welcome screen. Okay, there you
Okay,
go.
welcome screen, Ken. He's
There you go.
trying.
Okay.
And just
Alright.
opened up a second one. Okay, so interesting, you can have that. All right, well, I kind of like the contrast, so I think I'll leave it gold for now. Looks like I can make it light and dark. Let's see what,
Click
what's
show
that's
you
gonna do?
startup.
Okay, if I really want to make it dark, I can do that.
Us older
Okay.
people, that's a lot easier to read white on black instead of black on white.
You like this one or the other one?
Dark for
Oh,
when
dark?
you get older eyes, that
Oh, white on black. I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Well, I don't know. I can go either way, I suppose.
Mhm.
That's what, there we go. How is that, it being the fact that this is being broadcast on Zoom, how is the legibility of the text? Is the legibility of the text better when the text is white on black?
I think
go-
so. No, I'm sorry, I meant the other one, that the
This one,
text is
okay.
black on white. I think it's easier to see.
Okay. All right. And now panel refers to, I don't know, I call this a system tray that's left over from Windows, I guess.
officially the right side is the system tray.
This is system tray,
Yeah.
okay? And so this is called the panel. So
Yes.
you can have a traditional layout or you can have a modern layout.
He's in the mode, modern.
Yeah, I see that it sort of changed a little bit, but let's go back to traditional. Okay, I see it's got smaller icon, it's got smaller, yeah, I call them icons. So probably for what we're doing and the fact that we're using Zoom, it would, oh, I see, and it's also not giving me the names next to them, but I think that's another setting that you can go in and tell it to. Let me see just for a second if I do this. Panel settings. Okay, so there is a more detailed panel settings. Let's see what comes up when I do that. Okay, so you can auto hide. Right now it says always show panel. So let's auto hide it so it goes away. Oh, I see it's over here. Okay, so, oh, intelligently hide. All right, let's see how intelligent you're going to be. All right, so, okay. Notice also that we got this modern color scheme now. So I think
That lets you know that the panel is editable.
Editable.
Yeah, because you're
Okay,
editing it right now. So
I see.
that color goes away. That lets you know that panel can be changed. Be careful.
Mhm.
And if we wanted it really larger, I guess we can make it bigger. And we can make it smaller.
Where is this panel?
This is the panel right here. Whoops, here's the
Oh,
panel
is it?
right down here
Oh, down at the bottom. Okay.
at the
got it.
bottom. All right, so right now it looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch. And if I hit it here, you can see it's a great big panel. That's really too high. So let's put it back about halfway where it was before. So that's kind of good. The time is kind of small, but it's not like we look at the time all the time. Now, I see, yeah, because I am here, you can change where it's located, I think. Is this what we're doing? Left zone, center zone, right zone?
No,
So what
your panel is in 3 parts.
Oh,
The
I
left
see.
side is the traditional from Windows favorites, shortcuts. The center would be when your programs are running, it shows what programs. And then on the right is your, your status bar area.
Okay. Okay, so again, we can play with font sizes. We can have it automatically done, scaled. Okay, general font. Okay, we can actually have more than one panel. And I think you were saying, John, you've got it on the side of your screen and you've got
Correct.
2. You have 2 of them.
Correct.
Now, I have got this, I've got these zoom controls here. Let's see if I can tell it to hide those controls, hide the video, hide the panel. No, let's see. Okay, I got that and I didn't want it. Oh, here it is. This'll. No, that's an invite. All right, I'm just stuck with this on my screen.
Yeah,
which
we
is-
don't see it.
You don't see it. Okay. All right, so general options. So I could, in fact, add a new panel and put it on the side of the screen if I wanted to. I think I'm going to leave it right now where it is. So if I'm done with this, I guess if I close this, I'll be out of the edit mode. Yes, and it's gone back to gray. All right. Okay. Now it's recommending that I set up a system snapshot, and John did a very nice discussion of backup routines for APCUG, and I'm still have a lot of references that I want to look at it. But since I haven't done anything at all on any of my Linux computers, because I had this thing in my head, well, I don't need to back it up because I'm not using it for anything. So in this case, I'm going to at least do a very quick run through. So what I did is I got myself an 8 GB SD card. I put it in the slot. There we go. And you can see that I now have a volume that is showing up here. And you could also do this with an external USB drive, which would give you a lot more space. Now, I don't know if I'm going to completely fill this up or not because I don't know how much I'm using. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to look at one of the utilities that comes with this. And if I remember correctly, let's see if it was, I think it's disks. There we go. That's the utility I saw earlier. So this is actually showing me what space I'm using on my file system and what my partition is. So you can see that I have, and this is how this computer came with only in quotes, 128 gigabytes. And I'm going to assume that this is how much is used. Let's see, a size. 528 free. So, well, no, that's just this guy. How about this one? That's what I want to see. Okay, so it's 127 gigabytes, 113 gigabytes free. So I'm pretty sure that if I tell it that I want to do a backup of the boot portion, that it'll go on that 8 gigabyte stick. At least I hope it will.
You can determine that.
Okay. So let's just see what happens because I haven't done this before. So let's launch it. Wants the password. Okay, John, these are my choices. What do I want?
You want the rsync unless you've changed your whole file system to the Butter RFs one. Majority uses the rsync right now.
Okay. Okay, I've got to move this up because my Zoom panel is,
Yeah, I
Covering it for me.
can't remember now how to get that out of there.
okay. Estimating system size. So I like to do this on any computer that I set up for the first time. And that is to go ahead and make a backup. And we're just going to take the main section.
Nope, nope, nope.
No?
Where do you want the snapshot to go?
Oh, the location. Okay, that's where I want it to go. Ah. It doesn't have it wants a Linux partition. Okay. Well, there's nothing there. It's just FAT32.
Right.
So is it going to make it for me?
Might not.
Hmm,
Let's see what happens.
hmm.
Next.
Let's do next and see if it says it's going to do it. Devices with Windows files not supported. Isn't that interesting? All right, let me see what happens if I choose next. No, it didn't. All right, so it's telling me I need to make a Linux volume on there. All right, well, let's see what happens then. Let's close this for the moment.
Hmm.
And let's go over here to this volume and let's tell it to format it.
Where did you?
And let's set it as ext4. And I'm going to say SD. And say format. And it was formatted. Close. Back to system snapshots.
And I'm pretty sure that in that program you were running earlier, that you can do the formatting there too.
Okay, I didn't see it, but that's all right. Notion, okay. Now, that's interesting that I didn't get that.
Because you already went into the program. So now we have to go back into the create.
All right,
Nope, cancel that. Down at the bottom. Go to your wizard.
yep, that's where we were. Okay. The reason I'm moving this up again is because I have a Zoom panel down at the bottom. I'll figure out how to get rid of that. Okay, next. Okay, now we will choose the location. Now what?
I would take it out and put it back in. Eject the drive.
Okay.
And if
Oh, let's see, let's refresh. First, let's see.
Do you eject yours or just pull it out?
Yeah, that's all I do.
Well, I can do that. Just pop it out. And turn this on, come out. Okay, back in.
now go back to your devices that you were the program you were in before. And click on the SD card. And see, it's still a FAT32. So I didn't think you could take that where you were and tell it to format itself. So right now it's a 32-bit. So go to your little gears.
In the program.
No, right above the 7.9 gig. Under the brown. and see if we have a format.
Mm.
Hmm.
You
And
want the
see-
top or type one? The top
This-
one
yeah,
on type.
yeah, that's right. Internal disk. Yep. Okay. Okay, next.
And now it's creating.
Okay, and it did change. Linux bootable. That's interesting. They made it bootable, but master partitioning, master boot record. Okay. So let's close that. Let's go back and try again.
Mike, is the SD another name for the flash drive?
Yeah.
What it is an actual card.
Okay.
Like one you would put in your camera
Okay. So
rather
you can
than,
also do this to a flash drive,
yes. Mhm.
USB stick? Okay.
Yep, and if it's your main computer, you're going to want a lot more space. So as you would do for a Windows computer, I'd recommend, an actual portable hard drive, one of the Western Digital ones or ones that you get at any office store or from Amazon. Probably a 50 gigabyte or 100 gigabyte, just depends on how large a main drive your computer is going to have.
So
Okay.
what do we call it when you select it? Would it show up as a USB?
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, and then the best suggestion is that you do a right click and rename it. So
I
that
think you
each
wanted to
thumb
click
drive-
next and not
Yep,
finish.
I see. I did that. Yep. Not enough space. Okay, so there's your answer. I really need to have, and I do have something I can put in here. So rather than tie us all up with it, at least we've gone through the procedures of doing it. We also have learned that we've got to make sure that it's formatted in a Linux format.
Yeah.
And
You need to go another step with this program,
okay,
because Snapshot or Time Machine and by default only backs up your root and your system. It does not back up your files
okay,
unless you tell it to include everything. I just do it the normal way because I have my files on a separate hard drive and I back them up separately. So this makes it sort of like the Windows system restore from the
Mhm.
old days. And then you wouldn't need as big because, your initial operating system isn't that large. But that's what you have to decide on when you go into the next step, is go to
what I want to do is see if I could go directly to settings.
Yeah.
So,
go to the schedule. Let's go to schedule because people need to talk about what this does. And this is very interesting because what it can do is, when I was working at the middle school, we did our backups of files, but you can have it do a daily backup every day. And I do it for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, it'll do a weekly backup. And then it repeats and does another 6 days, and then a weekly repeat. Then after 3 weeks, it will do a monthly backup. So you actually have, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 backups. That's why you kind of need a little bit bigger space. But
Mhm.
that gives you the option that you could go back in time. That's why this is called Time Machine or Time thing, and take your system back a number of whatever, I've installed programs and now all of a sudden something doesn't work, so I can keep going back. But this is the one that doesn't normally back up your data unless you tell it to. So you have to decide, do you want a program that does everything, or is special in just your system, and then do another backup, which you can do with a different program and back up your files. Because if your
Yeah.
file, yeah,
John, do you use the Linux Mint backup?
What?
Aren't we
well-
doing that now? Because-
this is not, this is what we'd call it, a snapshot, a picture of your system.
Mhm.
So it's just backing up, all of your root files
Right.
that run it, and it doesn't
Mhm.
back up your documents, pictures, videos, and all that.
But
See, here's
Linux Mint does have a backup program
right.
that does back up the stuff in your home directory.
That's correct, and it'll also back up some of your applications too.
Right.
But that's why I said, you can choose to do that to back up your files, or you go into a different kind of, backup. There's a
Right.
one that you can do through the command line,
Mhm.
and backup. So, here's the one that
Yeah.
he's showing you. So that is the second backup. So personally, I would let this one back up my data and let
Right.
Snapshot back up my system.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Because, I don't think you need to back up your data every night.
No.
Some people, programs
The
do.
other one, personal.
But the biggest thing is if you keep your software separate from your operating system on a separate partition in a laptop or a separate drive in a
Mhm.
computer, you save yourself a whole bunch of headache, like I just did when I redid my 2 computers. I was just able to rebuild them, and all my software was, all my files were just sitting there quietly, and didn't matter that I was totally redoing my computer.
So this is good, because
Mhm.
what we've done is right at the top level, we focused in on, okay, we're going to be setting the system up. We're going to be planning for where we're going to store our files. And we haven't even talked about changing where our home folder is going to be, and whether we had a second hard drive or create a partition for it. This particular computer is, from my standpoint, it's very small with only 128 gigabytes. But I don't plan on, if this were mine and it was not my primary computer, I'd just be using it to browse on the internet and maybe save a few files and pictures and things like that to upload to social media. So I really would just like to have the ability to restore all my settings and updates and things that I've done over, a period of time. So it would be good to do a snapshot, and probably, unless I put a lot of personal data on here, I probably wouldn't even be backing that up, because I would, if I was going to do something like I'm going to do with my desktop, I would just install a new version, the latest version of Linux, and then be starting over.
Yeah.
But it's good to at least see that they consider it. These are the first steps that you want to consider when you're setting the computer up, how you're going to back it up and what you're going to do with your data.
Mhm.
And
So
the
I was gonna say, do you leave the external hard drive plugged in all the time then, if you're gonna do this
No.
every day?
Well, I don't.
Well, here's the problem. Look at the very first sentence under system snapshots. It'll do it automatically. But if you don't have the thumb drive plugged in or the SD card, you're going to get a big error message coming just like you can in Windows, because it wants to back up, because it does it on its own. You know, you said to do a daily backup, but when did you tell it to do it? You don't tell it on that. So like on my system, I've got the system snapshots on a separate partition. And so it backs it up off of the computer system. And I don't have to worry about plugging in a thumb drive, taking it back out, because it's separate. It's not in the you know, the regular partition of the root or the Linux.
Well, maybe we need to cover how to set up all these partitions.
Well, and we will. The idea today is to kind of get an overview
Okay,
Yeah.
and work our way through, but certainly doing what I would call an advanced setup. If you're actually going to plan for alternative partitions on the same hard drive or two hard drives or not SD cards,
SSDs.
SSDs, yeah, extra letter in there. SSDs, and many computers, in fact, I think even this one has got a socket where I could put another SSD in and get a second partition. So
Nice.
that makes a better configuration, just as John has said. And even on my Windows computer, I have one SSD that is only the Windows and programs and the settings. And then all my data is on the D drive. And that data gets backed up differently than the image does of the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
So
and none of us actually did any kind of advanced thing until after we first started Linux. And then we find out, oh, that wasn't the best way to do it. But with,
Mhm.
as you saw the last week, when Mike installed Linux, it takes 10 minutes. So, it's not going to take forever when you say, oh, I've got a better idea for a better building plan, and boom, you make the change and you're back in business pretty soon.
And
Okay,
I don't,
well, I don't
to be
know
honest with you, I don't mind doing that with this particular computer. And I just have to set up my camera again, because we would be external from the notebook, and actually walk through what I would call an advanced setup. And we might do that. Just,
one last question on that, Mike. How do I tell if I have a SSD slot on my machine? I don't know how.
you
What
have
is
a
it?
you have a gateway and you have a model number. So what you do is
just check that
go,
out.
go to the specifications and
Okay.
see what's there.
All right, thank you.
And since you have Windows, there is a utility by the makers of CCleaner called Speccy, SPECCY. And you can go to ccleaner.com and download Speccy and run it. And Speccy will give you all your hardware information. And it should, I would think, tell you if you have more than one, although it may not tell you you've got a slot that's unfilled, but it would give you an indication of what your hardware is.
So it's
Oh.
always external on our laptop then?
I'm sorry.
Probably. Okay, I got it.
No,
Okay.
no. She was saying that it was external. No, it's internal.
Oh, okay.
The SSD just means it's a hard drive. It's the newer one.
Oh, a solid state. You're just
Right.
saying.
Solid state, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right. I just didn't get that. All right, yes.
How old is your gateway?
It came with Vista.
Okay, so it is most likely you have a mechanical hard drive inside the
Oh, I'm
notebook.
sure. Yeah, it's very slow.
Well, Linux will speed things up to some extent. And you might want to think about, if, again, it depends on how that particular laptop was designed. Some of them, you just flip them over on the back and there's little compartments that you just has a single screw. that you unscrew and take the cover off, and you can actually see the hard drive sitting in there. And you can remove it and replace it with an SSD, or you can go to
Okay,
a.
no, this
a-
doesn't have a solid state, I guarantee you.
Well,
Yeah, it has
and
the
you
old
can go
thing.
to a geek, you can
Yes,
go to a
anyway,
Geek
okay.
Squad, or you can go to an independent computer dealer. Somebody will change it out for you if you want to. Okay, so, all right, the next thing they wanted to say was check drivers to see if there's any recommended. So I'm going to run this, and if there are some drivers to install, I probably won't do it while we're doing Zoom because it could affect what we're doing, but I'm going to at least let it tell me if there's anything that it thinks need to be updated. And Linux did a pretty good job of identifying everything. My printers, for example, were installed going back, as I showed last month, just even off of the USB. So they are saying
Yep.
there's a wireless network adapter. And it says it, okay, it does say it's in use.
Yep. You're good.
So it looks like I'm okay. Okay, so the next thing. Okay, and we talked about the little update manager shield. So as you are using the computer, this shield will change color. And then that little pop-up will tell you you have 6 updates, you have 10 updates, whatever. And I have found, especially using Linux on 2 other computers on a regular basis, it isn't that critical that every time you get a message that you run an update. You can do it when you want. And probably a good idea to do a backup before you do the update anyway. But just to see what it looks like, this is what the update manager looks like. Pretty generic. And it's telling me everything's up to date. And I can refresh. And it's going to check to see if it's aware of any updates. Typically, Firefox as a browser, Mozilla updates that regularly. So maybe once a week or a couple times a month, you're going to see the browser update. And as I mentioned this morning when I turned it on, there was a whole Linux kernel update. So there was a major update to the system. Now, I wasn't going to cover the terminal, but I'm going to bring it up and it'll be documented in the video, and we will have sessions on using the terminal. But what is the terminal? Okay. So what you're looking at is the same thing that if you went to Windows and you opened up the command prompt, slightly different lead in, but you're basically sitting and the terminal is asking you to enter in some commands. So there are some key commands that I'm going to cover today. Let's see, someone else is in the waiting room, so I will let him in. So there are some key commands that I will cover today that have to do with update, that also I have found will find some things that the update manager doesn't find and maybe update them for you. So the first command you want to know about is a command called sudo, S-U-D-O. And that stands, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, John, but that I believe that stands for super user do. Is that what it stands for?
That's correct.
Okay. So what that's saying is we are not super users on our own computer. The administrator is. And unlike Windows, we're not the administrator in our account. So if we want to carry out commands that only an administrator can do, you have to preface the command with sudo, and it'll prompt us for a password. And then the first command I'm going to do is to update my repository information where updates are located. So that command is apt, and then get, and then update. So I'm going to do sudo apt-get update, and I'm going to press enter. It wants my password,
apt.
and it's going to check all the different packages that it goes out and gets. So it took a look at them, and I didn't see that it downloaded any new packages. So it looks like our update manager did in fact have all the latest repositories. Now I'm just going to double check that all of those updates have been installed. And if they weren't installed, then this command will do it. So again, I'm going to say sudo apt get, and then I'm going to use upgrade. And I'm going to press enter. Okay, and you can see there aren't anything that says there's nothing upgrade to be updated. There's nothing that has to be newly installed, and nothing had to be removed or upgraded. Now, I could have done this right off the bat and not use the update manager. But what I like to do is use the update manager, let it do the updates, and then these two commands after I've let it update, just to make sure that everything's been updated on the computer. Any comments?
You might get to the point where when you've been using Linux enough that you pretty much ignore their update manager and you do all of the updating through the command line because it's so much faster and does
Right.
catch everything.
Right.
Okay.
Do you
And
have
do
to
you
put
use
that
the-
first $sign in or something? It
No.
looks like-
Automatic.
Oh, it comes in automatic.
That's the prompt, right?
All right, thank you.
And we will do, some other sessions on terminal commands. And maybe as we go, if there's things that we want to bring the terminal up and show, then that would be a good thing, especially when we do software installations. Okay, so now the next thing is saying is, let's take a look at some system settings. So let's look at the system settings. And we can see, for example, I'm tired of this gray Linux background that's on our desktop. So let's see what it's going to let me do to change it. Not very. All right, we're getting some stuff that's interesting. So let's find, well, since we sort of gotten an earth theme here with these browns and greens, let's see what the desert looks like. Ooh, that's a bit bright. How about blue? Yeah, that's sort of a neutral blue. I probably have to then go down here and change these things too, but I sort of like the blue. Maybe blue confetti. Let's see. Yeah, that's a bit busy. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I think I will. Oh, and maybe wave. Yeah, that's nice. We'll have some water. Okay, so let's see just see what else, just out of curiosity.
Because that's the next upgrade, because that's the 0.1 type thing. So you get an extra set of ones that you can pick from.
And then if you have your own pictures, I'm assuming if I hit a plus, it's going to prompt me to go. Yeah, all right. So it's going to prompt me to go looking for pictures, and I don't have any. Okay.
Yeah. I think you would have seen them in the screen before.
In the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and let's me just come down here and see what that looks like. Okay. How is that coming across on Zoom? Is that too bright?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
But you Florida people probably wouldn't like that because that looks like a hurricane starting up.
Yeah. Okay, next is the software manager. Now, with the installation of our basic Linux package, we've got actually a lot of productivity apps, a lot of good stuff is included. But as they're saying, there's about 60,000 applications available. So they consider the bare minimum, but we'll take a quick look at what they consider a bare minimum. And the software manager that's here lets you see what's available from the repositories that have been tied in to Linux Mint. And as I found out in talking to John a little bit, sometimes a different distribution of Linux will have different standard application packages available that you can install that otherwise you might have to do some manual installing. So, for example, if right now you're using Dropbox on your Windows computer and you want Dropbox on your Linux computer, and you want the ability to go back and forth between two different computers and have Dropbox be the central location for everything, or the ability to transfer stuff easily, that's available. Chances are at some time in the future, we'll talk about setting up a virtual environment and maybe even running Windows inside that virtual environment if there's enough memory and storage. So they've got some things that are available, but if you think about something that you would like to install, to find out if there's an easy package for installing it, you want to just go up to search and see whether or not it's available to be installed. And Donna, what were we talking about last month, the productivity app that you're using?
I don't remember.
But I have one you can check out that Windows just broke.
All right.
Overdrive Media Console.
Let me just, okay, I'll just try Overdrive and see.
Okay,
No, it doesn't
Yeah.
show it.
That's the library one, right?
yes, that's not how we get everything from the library.
Yeah, you'd have to go to Overdrive, their website, and see if they have a Linux
Right.
program.
Okay.
And we
thank
will
you.
do that. But here's a good one though. So we're going to cover all the different things that come standard, but a multimedia player from VLC is a fairly common thing, and it's across the board a good standard. So let's just select it. And you can see there's the media player, streamer, plugin, example of what it looks like, reviews. And so let's just tell it to install it. You're going to get to know your password.
And you have to put a password in, right?
Because what you're doing, it's the equivalent of doing the super user command.
Okay. All right.
So, and in order to do that in your account, you have to put your password in.
Okay.
I think I was saying last month, if this particular notebook is not going with you on trips, if it's just going to be in the house, if you're not worried about its physical security of somebody else getting in and getting to it, then just choose a nice, easy couple of key passwords. And on this particular one, since it's not going anywhere and it's probably going to get reinstalled multiple times, I'm just using Lenovo. I mean, the computer's a Lenovo computer. It's something I'll remember. So, but if I were taking this with me, it would be a complex password that somebody couldn't just easily guess. Now,
Okay.
now that it's installed, I could just launch it. But let's see what happens if I don't just say launch it from the software manager. So I'm going to see, and firewall. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. In fact, I'll close it and then reopen it again. So, okay, unlike Windows, notice there's no icon for it on the desktop and there's nothing in the system tray. So I'm going to go and find where it is. Chances are it's in productivity, but again, I can just search. There it is, media player. Now, instead of opening it, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say, let's add it to the desktop. Okay, so there's how I get my icon on the desktop. And if this were something that I was going to use regularly and always wanted to see it down here in the panel, I can just do it again. So I'm going to say VLC. And I'm going to say, add it to the panel. So now I can double click on the desktop, or I can single click in the panel, bring it up, And now if I had some media to play, I could just open it up, browse to it, and I can play audio and I can play video.
Mike, why don't you show on the start button that you have favorites there? So if you run out
Okay.
of room or don't want to use it, that you can put favorites on the start button there, just like in Windows could.
Is this the favorites?
Yeah, up and down through there from the folder on up.
I
Oh,
think I
no,
just-
that whole column was your favorites.
Oh, this is my favorites. All
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay,
if you
so-
go back
yeah.
to VLC
Yeah.
and put it in your favorites.
Didn't do it. Oh, I see. Well, oh, that's it. There
What?
we go.
Yep.
Yeah. Is it?
No,
Let's see. No, it's something else. I'm not sure what
that
it
was your
was.
that was your software manager.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
my software manager. Okay. So let's see again. Where did you go? Set added to, let me just double check. It's in favorites. So
Okay.
where did favorites go?
You don't have enough room to see it.
Ah, because I have so many things here. All right, so this is the software manager. Let me take it out of, no, I can't right click on it. Okay, so let's go to software manager. And let's see if it's sitting in favorites. Remove from favorites. Okay. Now we'll go back in.
Okay.
VLC.
There it is,
the-
it's there, right in the middle.
Ah, yes, there it
The-
is.
The trick
Yep.
was that you needed to expand that window for the start, and then it
Mhm.
would have stretched out for more favorites.
Gotcha.
That's kind of like one of the negative parts of this is that you only have so many favorites that you can put in that column unless you keep stretching it up.
Well, being a Windows guy, I use my desktop extensively. So, and I know there are applications that will give you multiple desktops and just expand them if you wish, and then different groups of programs. So chances are for things I use on a regular basis, it's going to be here or it's going to be down here if I'm using it on a regular basis. And for example, Firefox is down here for browsing. And that I didn't install that came with it. So I'll just show you. There's Firefox. And it defaults to the home page of being Linux Mint. Okay, so there was one more thing on the welcome menu. Oh, the firewall. We haven't really dug into security that much, and the APCUG Wednesday series has done a lot on Linux and security. But overall, the requirements for security on a Linux computer are much less than they are on a Windows computer. We haven't even talked about putting an antivirus on, and there are antivirus programs, but and the firewall that I have right now essentially is in my router. So there is a firewall. Come on. Come on. Oh, it's there. Okay. Just trying to open it a second time. Let's see. The status is showing that it's not on at the moment. So status on, incoming deny, which I guess is requests coming in from the internet to do things on your computer. outgoing allow, which means if you're sending things out, you want to let things go. And if you have any point-to-point apps, which we don't at the moment. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it turn itself on, I think. Yep, there we go. And you can dig into that. We don't have anything special at the moment. So I'm really not going to get into all the different rules. This would be the equivalent on a Windows computer of having the Windows firewall turned on. So if you want a little extra protection, it would be good to turn this on. And then we'll talk about installing antivirus at a future point if that's what we wish to do. Comments about the firewall? Okay.
My only comment would have been, you're right, that if you've got your router secure, you don't need on here because the router should be stopping anything from getting in. So it's just a, maybe an extra one, but if something got through, I'd have to go back and look at the router and say, okay, you're not doing your job.
Okay, nice thing about Linux is it has a complete set of documentation available. There's guides, new features, release notes. So lots of reading in your spare time. I'll admit to not accessing Linux documentation unless it's something that I really need to look up. And the whole purpose of doing this special interest group and getting this computer and doing it was to say, what does the average user really need to know about installing Linux? Make it as simple as possible, make it easy to use and not frustrating. And then those things which do need attention, we'll focus on as we dig into it. So just to know that documentation is available, including help with web forums. And if you're the type of person that likes to chat, there's even chat rooms. And if you're a programmer, hey, learn to program and you too can contribute. So essentially we've covered the help or the welcome, but the only thing I would have added to it is maybe a section that calls your attention to, hey, here's the start menu. And it's done a pretty good job of organizing all of the default programs and settings and administration and preferences all in this one menu. So if, for example, you wanted to know what internet programs do I have, the very first one is web browser. There's a chat program that I've never heard of before, but apparently you can chat with it. I haven't even tried to do that. If you use Office and you use the abilities to use their Outlook with mail and organizing and so on, Thunderbird is a very good alternative. And there's actually a Windows application for it too. But it's a very good mail program for people that actually have mail servers that they query and download their mail and store it on their computers. So that comes with it. I have no idea what transmission is. Let's see if it's going to give me a little pop-up. I thought it would tell me about it.
Transmission and once you get torrents.
Oh, okay. So that's for exchanging programs.
Right.
Okay. And video and things like that. Okay.
I do a lot of ISO downloads with that. And then I become a part of the network and help upload and make downloading even faster.
Okay. Let's see what web apps brings us. Web apps run websites as if they were apps. Okay. That's something I've never used.
That's new in this 20.1. And you can, if you bring up something on your browser, you can put it in there as a web app. I have YouTube in mine as a web app, just as I did it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that. You know, I actually searched for a YouTube Linux app instead of having to open my browser and then going to YouTube and then logging in and so on. So it's nice to know that that's available. I'll have
It
to look
puts it
into
in
that.
its own window. It's not in the browser window. It doesn't have the menus at the top like
Mhm.
Firefox normally does.
And when I installed Zoom, you can see that it actually categorizes the internet and stuck it in here. There's a lot of graphical programs. Well, there's a few graphical programs. If you are going to do a lot of photo editing, you'd probably want a program called GIMP, which is similar to Photoshop, and it's a very extensive one. This is probably just a rudimentary drawing. Pix, let's see, is that going to be a photo editor? Let's see, pictures, pics, videos. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be the ability to edit, or maybe it's just organizing them.
It would be your photo viewer.
Okay,
That's how,
let's-
that would be like, in Windows, the picture program, but that's how you would look at
Right.
your pictures.
right. Okay. And let's see here.
And the drawing one, just to clarify that, is part of the LibreOffice suite.
Okay,
And
so you can
and
actually get in.
yeah, and that's one thing that LibreOffice has that Windows doesn't have, is an excellent drawing program, because this is not a toy. It's full, big deal stuff.
Full drawing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I appreciate art, but I can't do art. So give me Photoshop and or a drawing program like this. I can make great stick figures, and that's about all I can do with it.
Just as a side too, this is the program that does a lot with editing PDFs too.
Really? Okay. All right. I'll have to keep that in mind. Okay. So Office, LibreOffice. So OpenOffice was the first version as an alternative to Microsoft Office many, many years ago. It had since been purchased by Sun Microsystems. And I guess the powers that be in open architecture wanted to literally have a free version that wasn't tied to any particular software publisher. So LibreOffice became the replacement for OpenOffice. So some of you may recall OpenOffice as being out there. And it does have, if I had to put a percent on something, I'm going to say it's about 85% compatible with the Office documents, presentation managers, spreadsheets, and so on. So in the majority, you can do everything in LibreOffice that you can do in OpenOffice. And in the recent presentation that I gave for APCUG on the social media, social networking systems and MeWe as an alternative, I did the whole thing in LibreOffice Impress, which is the equivalent of PowerPoint. And you can do all your spreadsheets in LibreOffice Calc. Just click on that real quick and you'll see it comes up. So you can see it's like an Excel spreadsheet. And in some cases, it's even got more functions than Excel does. But you can save things for compatibility purpose. I usually go in to the Office documents, and under Load Save, you can determine what your default file formats are for the entire suite. So for example, if in fact you want a text document to be more or less as compatible as possible with Microsoft Word, instead of saving it as a ODF text document, you can save it as a Word 2007 Office 365, or you can even go back to .doc. And for compatibility, I usually use .doc. And then you can change text document and make it a spreadsheet. And again, you can go in and you can find Excel, and you can make it compatible with XLSX, which is the Office 365, or you can go even further back and say, I want it to be compatible with all versions of Excel, and choose the XLS format. And the same thing with Impress, which is, let's see here, why are you not showing? Oh, presentation. And you can change it from the open format, and you can change that to PowerPoint. And again, the latest version of PowerPoint, or you can change it to a PPT, which is a standard PowerPoint. So if you make those changes in any LibreOffice app, it will apply across the Calc, the Word, the Impress, and so on. And typically that when people are transferring over for the first time, they want to do that so that they're 100% compatible. If they open something up that came from Office and they edit it and they want to save it back, and they want to save it back in an Office format instead of a LibreOffice format. So we'll go back to it again. Now, because this is something I use pretty regularly, I'm just going to go ahead and take that and I'm going to put it on my desktop. So now I have LibreOffice on my desktop. And you can see now I can go directly in from this menu and I can create a document. And it looks pretty much like it, a generic Word document. I have to be proper in my phrasing. I can't say now's the time for all good men. I have to say now's the time for all good people. Whoops, except it jumped
Very
on me.
good, thank you.
So it's there. And that phrase I learned, well, that back when it was originally typed, it was party and it was men, but that was jammed into my fingers and my brain in a secretarial typewriting half semester in my senior year. So,
Yep.
and I was one of the few boys in the class, which I
We
enjoyed.
all did
Me too. A nice little piece of trivia for you
Sure.
is that Open Office that you mentioned, it got its start from Star Office. And that's
Okay.
what when I first learned it, and I put Star Office on all the computers in our middle school because it cost me $1 maybe to buy the media, and then I was allowed to install it on as many computers as I wanted. So I only had to pay for the physical disk, and then it switched to Open Office. But I started that with Star Office way back in early 2000s.
Okay. Sound and video. Here's a video viewer, but we now have VLC medium player in here. Here's a music player. I'm not sure what Hypnotics is, probably.
This
Free
is
TV.
Something new. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just heard about this from our Linux guy, and yep, you can, with Mint is the one that has it right now, is that you can watch TV through this thing.
Yeah,
How about that?
Have you tried it,
Buzzing.
Stu?
yes, I have, and that works well.
Yeah. Since I just switched back over to Mint, I haven't tried it yet.
Right.
How about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they let you put in your own handles on it, so you only have the ones that they have.
Okay, that's kind of neat.
Right.
You went to something else besides that.
Now, we do have our backup tool, which we talked about when we came in. There are a couple different ways. We did have a little app called Discs, but here's a disk usage analyzer, which I did not look at. So again, I probably could have gone to that right away. And it's basically telling me, here's how much was available to have stuff put on, because there is some overhead on 128 gigabytes. So 125 actually available. And we've got 111.3 still available for stuff. So that's interesting. And let's see here, we were down here in administration. Okay. We did look at the driver manager. We could bring up the login menu. There are system logs on the computer, something we usually don't need to go look at unless we're troubleshooting with the aid of somebody who's technically knowledgeable, but logs are put on the computer and eventually they start taking up space, and there's a terminal command where you can clear some of these things out. This one, power statistics. So it's actually keeping track, I guess, of what we're doing. We're on power now, and this was a used computer that had been renewed by a dealer here in the Orlando area. And the battery has never really gotten past about 50% charge. So one of these days, I'm going to take a run up there and mention that to them and see if I can get another battery from them. But I don't really plan on using this particular notebook as a battery powered notebook. It's just nice to have a little small computer that we can use in the SIG. Got history on it too. Interesting. Okay. How long can I do this? For a week? Okay, so it kept track of it. Okay. All right, let's see here. It's back to administration. Power statistic, printers. It discovered my printers. I didn't even have to do any installation. It found them. We actually have 3 printers here in our house. They're all Wi-Fi printers.
Yours aren't.
So it found our 2 work center type brother printers, multifunction. One in my office, one in my wife's office, and then in her office, she has a brother laser color printer, which we use when we want to print colored things. And they're all 3 of them are on, and I've tested printing to all 3 of them, and they all print. I have not tried the scanners, and there may be things I still have to do to enable scanners. John, if you're familiar with doing that.
Right next.
Yeah, you might check. I'm still working on that, but I went to Brother's website and I downloaded some special drivers for my particular brother. That's just a laser with a scanner, and it works great as a printer with no trouble. But I think I have to, and now that I've redone my computers, I have to start everything all over again.
Yeah.
But sometimes if Brother or your printing manufacturer has developed a set of drivers specifically for Linux, I would probably go with those than what's just generic in Mint. Mint gets it to working. The Brother drivers might make it work better.
Okay. Well, I have no need to scan with this particular computer, and my secondary computer, which is Linux, I just print with, I don't scan with, but I probably will look that up and see what I have to do. Now, remember, we talked about the software manager, and we looked up something to download, and I myself just found out fairly recently that there's a secondary software installer that comes from Synaptics. And the Synaptic Package Manager works pretty much the same way. It's just that software that is registered with him is in a different repository. And let's just open this up. So there's all kinds of packages here. Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of packages. So you do the same thing if you're searching for something.
Yeah,
Like everybody,
64,000.
yeah, if everybody needs a tool for processing triangulated solid meshes. But there are quite a few things. So again, if I'm looking for something like here's an Adobe Flash Player plugin, although Flash is no longer supported in Windows browsers, and in Windows itself, it's still supported and you can get it for Linux. Here's an audio player, a few other things. So when you're looking for something, aside from checking it out with a web search, you can also go into the Synaptics package manager and see whether or not it's available.
Yeah, sometimes we say that the Synaptic is what people use when they want to be beyond the software manager, but you're not not quite ready to be a full terminal person. So you go into between.
Right. Okay, system reports. If there's any errors and things like that, they'll show up here. The terminal that I mentioned, this is where it shows up, and it's also sitting down here on your panel. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on my desktop because I do go into it pretty regularly. So here's the terminal. Let's go back to administration. Let's see if there's anything else. And this is where your user management would be. We talked about preferences and we did go into backgrounds. There's all kinds of other preferences. At the moment, I have Bluetooth on this notebook turned off, but it is capable of talking to your phone or sending sound out to a Bluetooth speaker. There's little applets you can put on your desktop. This was the discs one. I don't know why this isn't sitting in administration, but I do like that display. So that's there. Display settings, effects, keyboard languages, your mouse and touchpad sensitivity, scrolling, things along those lines, your network. Donna, did you ever get your Wi-Fi working under Linux with your gateway?
We haven't got Linux on the gateway as of yet.
I thought you were playing with it on the USB drive and said that it didn't see your router.
Yeah, well, no, it actually, we were able to, we have no problem with the Wi-Fi, actually. We do
Oh,
have
good.
Linux on a Toshiba machine that I've got a little boot up problem with, but other than that, Linux seems fairly interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you need to
troubleshoot.
troubleshoot your Wi-Fi, this would be the first place to come and just see whether or not it sees it. So in my case, it sees my Asus router. And I did my initial login when we were using the USB last month, and it kept the settings from then and just passed it on to the full installation.
Okay.
And today in the Google group email, we played around with a couple of terminal commands that actually shows if one of the switches, both software or hardware on a notebook, is turned off or on. So most notebooks are going to have a switch of some sort to put you in the airplane mode and turn your Wi-Fi off when you go flying. And sometimes it inadvertently gets pressed, especially if you're trying to find your boot key and you're pressing F2 and F6 and F8. And I think on this particular one, I'm just looking now to see if I think it's no, that's not F10. Oh, Wi-Fi. Okay. F9 on this laptop oh, here it is. No, F7 on this laptop has a little airplane on it. And so if I press that, if I press it now, which I'm not going to do, it'll turn my Wi-Fi off. So if I were going through the startup sequence, trying to find the key that would take me to the BIOS or the boot menu, and I hadn't been able to find it, and I was pressing all those keys, trying to find the right one, inadvertently, I might have pressed the key that turned the Wi-Fi off. And that was my concern, that that might possibly have happened.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're doing okay with that.
good, good.
We still have a little booting problem with Toshiba. It basically looks like there's more than one of the Linux programs out there, so it's deciding where to go. We did the F2 and what disk it should be booting up on, and it doesn't seem to change the boot up, and it might be the Toshiba machine is a problem. But that's something individually on the machine that probably is not, your group has probably resolved that in some way.
Well, as we started to discuss at the beginning of this session, if you use F2 and it does take you into your BIOS, and if you are going to abandon Windows on that machine and do a 100% installation of Linux, if you go in and turn off the Windows Secure Boot, turn on the legacy, the USB legacy capability, and then in the boot sequence, decide if you're actually going to boot from a flash drive again. And if so, have that first. And if not, have your hard drive show up first. And it should go right into Linux for you.
Okay.
Is is there another name for this Windows security boot? Or is that this right name?
I'm pretty
Secure
sure
boot.
that's, yeah, Secure Boot. I'm pretty sure it's Windows Secure Boot, right? Or might say
Okay.
Windows Boot Manager, but it's Secure Boot. Yeah.
Okay,
All right. What I'm going to do at this point then is I'm going
Oh,
to come out
here,
of,
let's
Go ahead.
teach, I want to teach everybody what we teach. And it's just almost similar to what you did last month.
okay.
Whenever you have a problem, take a picture of the screen,
Yeah. Okay.
because to solve this problem of their boot, we need to see what that boot menu is looking like to see if there's something wrong with it. But since we can't see it if you're not booted, so take a picture of that, and then you can share the picture and we can all say, oh, I see what it is. But that's the thing. In our group, we tell anybody, if you have a problem and you need help, don't come to me and say, I think it said this, or it might have been. Take the picture if you can't take a screenshot, so that we've got the exact picture of what you're seeing. And then that makes it really easy for people to troubleshoot.
Here's an app comes. There's plenty of screenshot programs out there, but this just comes with Linux. And again, you can put this on your panel and you can put it on the desktop, and all those images that you see me putting into the emails come from, if they're done on a Linux computer, come from screenshot. And you can see if I want the whole screen, I can just say, take the screenshot right now. And then it's going to give you everything. Icons, mouse pointer, what's here and all. Or you can say, just grab the current window and do it after a delay of, say, 10 seconds. So then I can close screenshot, click on the window I want, and the whole window will be an image. Or I can say, select an area to grab, say, take a screenshot, and then I can say, hey, this is what the icons are on my desktop. And then where do I want to save it? And I can put it right into pictures. And then I can click on my folder. My folders. Hopefully I can. Oh, that's the desktop. I'm sorry.
That was the
Click on
close all windows.
Yeah, closed all windows. And then go to my pictures. And there's my screenshot. And there's what I just took with my screenshot. So this is a very handy tool if you're in Linux. Obviously, if you're booting up and you're concerned about what your function keys are doing or what's in your BIOS, you're gonna have to take the picture with your phone or your camera.
Right. Yeah, I've been doing that to try to catch what it was doing, and yeah, I've got a few pictures. So we don't need to get into it tonight. I think we are getting close to the end of this, and we can do it by email or something.
Okay. All right, well, we've spent essentially an hour and a half going through the initial configuration and some of the menus and some of the install programs. There's still a whole bunch of little applets and install things that are in there that you can take a look at. Next month, what I want to do is, you saw how we installed something using the software manager, which is pretty easy. You just goes and gets the archive and installs it for you. So I want to step it up a little bit and find some applications that you've actually got to download a package and have the package installer install it, or you've got to use terminal commands once you've downloaded the installation media and get everything installed that way. And there's a number of things that I've put on my Linux computers that install that way, including alternative browsers and VPNs and things like that. So we'll go through some of the other ways of installing programs next month. And then if there's a particular subject that you'd like to see covered in this SIG, if you'll send a post either directly to me or to the Google group, I'd appreciate it. So I'd like to just go around those people that are with us tonight. If you've got any comments or questions at this point, we'll finish it up doing that. So I'll let John make his comments first.
Oh, my comments is I'm just excited about Linux. So any of you that we can convert over to Linux, it'll make me happy. It's just so easy to run and so secure and so free. And there's just so many choices. I'm now running your cousin. I'm running Mint Mate because I don't want all the bloat that comes with cinnamon. But I'm changing it all over anyway because you know the direction I'm heading. But it's so easy, and there's a lot to learn to move to more of a, I don't want to say an expert user, I call it a power user that I'm learning to share. That's it's so much fun.
What have you got coming up in the future on the Wednesday workshops for Linux?
Next week, I got to keep getting ready with that. Orv and I are going to address some of the questions that people submitted last week. I'll tell you right now that some of them we're not going to answer. And that's because we don't know all the answers. So that we're also I'm going to be demonstrating Vantoy, which is the thumb drive or the program that you can put multiple versions of Linux on one thumb drive and then pick and choose from that. It's pretty kind of easy to make. And Orv's going to do some more in the command line. And then in next month, in July, we've got somebody else coming who's from the Cajun Clickers group down in Baton Rouge, is going to do a comparison on the old GNOME. There's a brand new GNOME that's just come out desktop, and he's going to show the differences between that in July. And there's some other questions that we'll talk about and answer on next Wednesday. So
one of the comments that I gave Judy, and I'll just mention it again, is I know one or two of the folks here, and you've mentioned before, that people might like to try out Linux in a virtual machine. And if it's possible to discuss how to do that
Yep.
with a semi tutorial, I think that would be a good subject for one of the
Yeah.
workshops.
It's easy to do, with the Zoom, that we can just use the virtual box and you can see us do it. That may be on like for July. But yeah, we've talked about that because and there's a couple of different versions you can use. GNOME has their own box, and there's the KVM, and then there's the virtual box and the other one that I don't use. But yeah.
So both ways, in other words, on a Windows machine, set up a virtual machine and run Linux in it. And on a Linux machine, set up a virtual box and run Windows in it.
It wouldn't be any different because VirtualBox is the same on both.
Mhm.
And the problem that you have with running Windows is you got to have a license to run it because it's not free.
Mhm.
So
I have a few still left over from the old Microsoft TechNet that's still
So-
work for me.
I have a code that's for like 100
Address.
units. But yeah, so that's on there. We just didn't do it in the beginning because it's not something a beginners would really get into. Mostly we tell people to do what you did last month, burn a Linux to a thumb drive. It's easy, and you just plug it in and go without having to, set up the virtual box and virtual machines and run that. But yeah,
Okay.
that's on our list, and that's not one of the ones we're ignoring.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sean, how are you coming with your Linux investigations?
Good. I've decided that this laptop that I installed Mint on is just too old. It's an old HP that, it's, even though it's got an SSD drive in it, if I'm moving the mouse with the trackpad, it just every 5 seconds or so, it'll stop for a second. So I find that to be very annoying.
Sean, how old is it? The HP?
Let's see. I don't know. I'm not sure how old this one is. I'm guessing it's pre-2010.
I'm running an HP I know I bought when I retired. So it's a 2008 HP and it's running, but you got to pick. It's not going to run as well on Mint, but something like the MX that is designed for lightweight computers. XFCE might do it for yours, but I
Okay.
would probably, there's a couple of ones. Like I said, this one's a 2008 with 4 gigs of RAM, and it's still running. But I'm using a Windows Manager instead of the actual XFCE. So don't give up on it yet.
Okay. So you said what's the top one you would consider for this laptop?
I'm running MX Linux.
MX Linux. All right.
And I just, and the only reason I'm switching is because we're all doing the Mint right now. So I decided to switch back to, I used to use Mint. But I can tell you that my 2008 HP is still running. And now it's not a speedster, but it's still
Right.
running. I was watching videos on it and stuff. So
Right. I'm so I'll thank you, John. I'll try that. I 11 that I just retired as being a server, so I installed Ubuntu. One of the variations of Ubuntu, maybe Ubuntu server. I don't remember, and that's running okay. I just looked at the processes, and it's using like 60% CPU just sitting there. So it's not a real powerful computer, but it's functional. Something Mike asked is what we would like to see. I'd like to see some popular terminal applications that could be useful down the road somewhere. It doesn't have to be the next meeting, but and ways to integrate Linux with your everyday life that we like on a Windows computer. For instance, you can install Dropbox or 1Password. There's different ways different cool applications that we use on Windows or on Mac that are also available on Linux. So those are the things I'd like to see. Some ideas for that.
Okay. Sounds
Thank you
good.
for doing this.
Bud Gallagher, I think you didn't join us last month. I think you're new since then. So are
Yeah.
we meeting your expectations?
Yes, actually, I'm new to Linux. Been involved with computers since back with the TRS-80, but Linux has kind of always been in the background somewhere. I had for the longest time a little computer consulting business, which was 100% Windows-based minus one customer who was Linux-based. So that was my toying with Linux. And in the last year or so, I finally broke down and actually put Linux on a computer, and I'm starting to use it more and more and more. So I'm kind of feel comfortable in it, but I'm the command line, I'm not in it at all, or terminal mode. So I'm just, kind of a beginner, and that's where I'm at.
Well, thanks for joining the group. Stu, comments for this week?
No, I think you did a good job tonight walking through the menus on there, Mike. And thanks for doing this group. I really like getting together with Linux people. I'm around those Windows folks too often,
Okay, and Tim, I know you're new to this group this month.
We have,
Yeah, Tim, I know you had problems with the audio earlier and then it cleared up. So there's something. Need a little vocal cord surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim's gonna have to recheck it because we can't get any audio from him.
right.
There's still something weird with your audio. I'm sorry, Tim. But
I have,
thanks for
sometimes
joining
I have
us.
People
This
in
is
my group,
Donna. Oops.
uh,
Real quick,
that,
I have to
have
leave.
that problem, and you just have to reboot. Yeah, you just have to, if you go off and come back on, everybody is good after that.
Okay,
Okay,
gentlemen, I have to leave. My desktop computer failed. The hard drive was blown.
oh
And I had to
dear.
go pick it up. And my laptop is running so slow that I'm going to get that checked by somebody because it is so slow. I can't believe it. Anyway, I've enjoyed it and I'm going to leave. And supposedly I get a choice at boot up of one or two. One is Windows and two is Linux on my desktop. But I'm wondering if I would be better off to have it in a virtual private network from what you're saying, because Windows.
A virtual
updates all the
machine.
time.
Yeah, virtual machine.
Yeah, okay, virtual machine. So I'd like to see that covered ASAP. Oops, and I gotta go. We have
Okay.
my
Thanks for
computer.
joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And
Bye-bye.
Paul, have we convinced you to put Linux on anything?
All needs to unmute his mic.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. I'm just a listening post, and I'm just taking it all in. And
Well, that old Windows 7 computer would do a lot better with Linux on it. And you've got a nice new modern Windows 10 laptop, which, you can carry forward doing Windows on it and get rid of the crutch of Windows 7 and go to Linux on that old computer.
well, I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff on it. I think there's an internet problem. Can you understand me?
Yes. Mhm.
I'm getting feedback. It sounds like a scratchy cat.
Yeah, that's Tim's microphone for some reason.
Yeah. Mhm.
Maybe you can mute him.
Yeah, I was trying to find that on here and apparently it's not giving it to me. Anyway, he is muted.
Tim is
He is
muted.
muted. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey, Bob,
guys. Well,
I enjoyed it tonight. I enjoyed it.
all right, I'm going to stop the recording, assuming I can find it.
Thank you, Mike.